Hey guys, it's Alexis here. So as promised, I'm going to be doing some videos going over some contracts and some forms and all that fun stuff. Excuse me, I have all three kids here, so if they go crazy or get in the background, I apologize. You may see me momming a little bit. So real quick, I'm going to share my screen. All right. And what you are going to see me doing is basically a working with real estate agents and buyer agency agreement, all from the start, the onset. So most of you may or may not know, but your forms are available for you for free in zip forms. If you do not have your zip form information, let me know and I can help you get all of that. We can jump on this Zoom together one-on-one and get it all situated. So you can explain these in person and it's going to be very similar to how I'm explaining them here, but with COVID-19 happening, how do you explain them virtually? So this is kind of killing two birds with one stone. So the very first thing, let me go back to the list that you're going to do when you get into zip forms, and this is how I do it. There are other ways you can do it, and we can discuss that, but what I do is I go into zip forms and I click on new. Whether I'm doing a listing, a purchase, a lease, whatever the case may be. In this case, we're doing buyer agency and working with real estate agents. So I'm going to do new purchase or offer. And in this scenario, I'm going to be my own client. So I'm going to make an offer on my house, 8230 Chilkoot Lane, Locust, North Carolina. It is a residential transaction, so I click residential, and I'm going to save it. So as you guys can see, it puts you into your own little file. So I'm going to go back so you can see what that looks like. Down here, 8230 Chilkoot Lane. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go into documents. And then right over here is forms. And you can see, let me move my video, that you have different forms depending on where you're at. North Carolina Realtors. So the first thing we're going to need is working with real estate agents. So I'm gonna click, it drops it down in, and then we're also gonna need a buyer agency agreement. So when you click in working with real estate agents, virtually, you're going to go over this with your client. And we'll do that. In person, again, you go over with your client. It's gonna be a very similar format. Most of us know working with real estate agents is disclosing the different types of agency in North Carolina. So in this situation, how I explain this to my clients, and I recommend you read over this form because a lot of what you're going to be doing is paraphrasing. And as you're reading over the form, highlight if you have any questions about any of the sentences. If you feel like a sentence is in this document that if a client asked you to explain what it means, you couldn't explain it, highlight it and let's talk about it. So in this instance, how I go over this is, guys, this is working with real estate agents disclosure. What it does is it makes sure that you're fully aware of the different types of agency and how that affects you during the buying process in North Carolina. This is not a contract, but by law, I have to disclose this information to you prior to any material information about you being told to me. So in North Carolina, we have three types of agency. You have a seller's agent, a buyer's agent, and a dual agent. So as you can see, a seller's agent is to represent you and your best interest only on the property. They're going to be loyal to you. They're going to keep all of your information confidential, and they're going to work in your best interest. Then you have a buyer's agent. A buyer's agent does exactly what a seller's agent does, but for the buyers. Their job is to give them that loyalty, that obedience, keep everything confidential, and get the buyers the best deal possible. Then you have what's called a dual agent. So in dual agency, right here, that means that you have an agent that is representing the buyer and the seller. And at that point in time, you owe both parties fairness, and you owe both parties all of your fiduciary duties the same. So you're not going to be able to help with negotiating repairs. You're going to have to be very fact-based. So in this, a dual agent is a facilitator of the transaction only. That you're not getting their experience with negotiations. They can't tell you what to offer on a house. They can't tell you if you should counter and what you should counter at, things like that. So if you scroll down here, you will notice that my name is right here. I'm going to initial this because I disclosed it. And then if I am representing a buyer that has not signed a buyer agency agreement with me, I'm going to check mark right here. If they have signed a buyer agency agreement with me, I'm not going to check that. I'm just going to initial. So you put your license number, then you're going to put your firm, and then whatever date it is, we'll put the second. And then you come down. You're going to put Mr. Buyer, their full name, and then they're going to sign. And if you're working with two parties, it does not matter if both parties are going on the contract. If there's a girlfriend and a boyfriend, and the loan is going to be in the boyfriend's name, but the girlfriend is still a party to the transaction or influencing, you put them as well. And then you put the date. Again, your information is there. And then the buyers will initial right here. If they have not signed a buyer agency agreement with you, they are going to check mark here. What that means, when showing you a property and assisting you in the purchase of the property, the above agent and firm will represent the seller, because we are seller sub-agents until a buyer hires us. What that means to them and how you explain this is, guys, anything that you tell me during the showing, I am bound through our cooperating brokerage agreements with MLS, I'm bound to let the sellers know that. So keep all material information to yourself until you decide that you want me to hire you. That's buyer agency agreement. That's exactly how you do it. If they say, hey, I don't want to sign, I don't feel comfortable signing, not a problem. Not a problem at all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write down here, chose not to initial on 4/2. Yeah, today's the 2nd, 4/2, and then I'll sign next to it, because you tried to go over it, they didn't want to sign it, make a note that they did not want to sign, and then ask them to initial that note. Then you've got them initialing something. So this is buyer agency, and this is going to be at first onset. So what that means is, okay, we have a buyer that calls in, right? So the buyer's going to call in. You don't know them from Adam. So what you're going to say is, you're going to say, thank you so much for calling me. I appreciate that you did. Let me just disclose something to you very quickly, because I want to look out for your best interest, even though you haven't hired me yet. In North Carolina, there are 3 types of agency. You have a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, and a dual agent. Explain briefly what that means. And then what you're going to do is you're going to tell them, do not tell me any material facts, because I am bound by law to let the seller know that until you have hired me as your buyer's agent. Do you understand? Yes, they understand. Great. I am going to send you a document for signatures via DocuSign acknowledging we went over this. Are you okay signing that? It's not a contract. It's just saying we went over this prior to us discussing anything. They'll say, yes, great. Get their email, send it to them, pop it out to them after you get off the phone. If for some reason they don't want to sign it, totally fine. Not a problem at all. You go ahead and sign it. And then you go ahead and you put in there, hey, I disclosed this over the phone. They did not want to sign e-sign. And you're good to go on that end. And then again, if you're meeting them at a property, it's the same thing. You're stopping them, don't tell me anything, and you're disclosing everything to them. If you do it this way, usually they won't have a problem signing a buyer's agency agreement. So that is working with real estate agents in a nutshell, how to go over it, what it means. And if you guys have any questions that are more detailed, get with me so we can go over those. So then we go back. How do we go over a buyer agency agreement? How do we fill it out? So we're going to click the buyer's agency agreement. We're going to do today's date. Our buyers are going to be Mr. Buyer Smith, or we'll just say Buyer Smith. And Buyer Smith has a wife. So we're going to put wife Smith, whatever their names are. Then you've got eXp Realty, because it's with the firm, and they're purchasing residential. They're going to do general location. This is completely up to you, but you want to make sure that you are encompassing every potential house they could buy in the places you want to work. For me, I don't mind traveling up to 90 miles from Center City, Charlotte. So when I do my buyer agency agreements, I put any property, because if they decide to go buy a FSBO, we still have a contract, any property within 90 miles of Charlotte, NC. And when I'm typing, you can see the different things that pop up. of what I've done. So just for some examples, any properties in North Carolina and South Carolina, any property in North Carolina and South Carolina, Charlotte, NC, and surrounding areas. So all of that. And then if there's multiple properties, 2 properties, 1 investment property, 1 custom build. So protect yourself, be as detailed as possible. So any properties within 90 miles of Charlotte, NC. All right, so what this says is the effect of the agreement. It says buyer intends to acquire real property of the type described in paragraph 1. So paragraph 1, your type of property, by employing the firm as a buyer's exclusive agent. Buyer agrees to conduct all negotiations for such property through the firm and to refer to the firm all inquiries received in any form from other real estate firms, prospective sellers, or any other source during the time of this agreement. So Mr. Buyer and Mrs. Buyer, what that means to you is if you see a property you're interested in, whether it be a for sale by owner, it's a property on Keller Williams' website, whatever the property is, I have access to that. So you need to direct that to me so that I can handle the negotiations and get you all the information. Never feel like you're bothering me when you come to me to do this. This is my job and this is what I am agreeing to do when I sign this form. That makes sure that you don't disclose anything that you don't realize hurts your negotiating power, but may. Again, the duration of this agency is going to begin today, and it's going to expire at midnight on, and guys, this is completely up to you and how your business model is. I do all of my agreements for 1 year. So it'll expire at midnight on April 2nd, 2021, or when you close on a property that we discussed up in paragraph 1. Down here talks about the compensation for the firm. Side note, you guys can charge a non-refundable deposit or a retainer fee. This is where you would put that, $250 if you wanted to. And you can decide whether it will or will not be credited to the total firm's compensation at closing. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I do not charge you a retainer fee to begin services. This is my business plan, y'all. You do your business plan however you want. I do not charge a non-refundable retainer fee for my services. So that's good for you because some agents do. But this just states that my fee for service is 3% of the purchase price. Usually that 3% is paid to me by the seller, but I want you to know that sometimes the seller only offers 2.5%. Sometimes they only offer 2%. If it's a for sale by owner, they may not offer anything. I will always do my best to negotiate that the seller pay my full retainer fee, but should they not agree to that, we can discuss that at this time, and we'll talk about that further in the bottom. And this is exactly what all of this information that you're seeing, this I, double I, triple I, all of that is talking about exactly what I just told the client. Look, this is our fee. We're going to make every attempt to get the cooperating firm or the, everybody else to pay that fee. But if not, you are still responsible for making sure we get paid our full fee. Again, this comes down to business plan. What is your business plan? My business plan is I go ahead and reduce my commission to whatever's offered in MLS. And if it's a for sale by owner, we talk about that at that point in time. Of course, I'm not going to work for 1% on a for sale by owner. That's a lot of work. But if the for sale by owner is offering 2.5%, okay, not a problem. And we address that down at the bottom. It talks about expiration. So what this says, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is if within 180 days, which is 6 months of expiration of this agreement, you enter into a contract to acquire a property that I introduced you to or showed you during the time of this agreement, that we are still due our fee. I want you to understand that I may be representing other buyers that are interested in the same property as you. And in that scenario, I cannot disclose what their offer is, just like I couldn't disclose what your offer will be. Our duties are going to be to perform to the terms of this agreement, seeking property at a price and terms that are acceptable to you. We're going to be obedient to you, and we're going to make our recommendations to you based on our experience in this field. You do not have to do what we say. It is always your choice, but we're letting you know up front that our experience is valuable. This just states, number 7 states that we may have to disclose your information, your name, your mailing address, things like that, to closing attorneys and the clerk of courts and stuff if we proceed to closing. We're never going to just put your information out there for everybody and their mom to have. This says that we're not going to discriminate. So what that means is if you tell me that you don't want to live in a neighborhood with Jewish people, I'm going to have to tell you to go find another agent because I cannot discriminate based on someone's religion. Again, this is religion, sex, color, race, any federally protected class I cannot discriminate against. So if you don't mind, let's keep it fact-based. I want 3 bedrooms, 2 baths within 50 miles of this address. Buyer's duties. Your duties is to cooperate with us in the acquisition of this purchase. So referring us to any properties that you're interested in, being available for reasonable periods of time to examine the properties, making sure you're proceeding in a timely manner, getting documents to us when we request them. All of those are your duties as the buyer. Other professional advice, we may recommend law firms, inspectors, anything, anything that comes up in a transaction, we will recommend vendors for, but you've got, we can't be held liable because they did something that you're not happy with. And that's what that's stating. What you're going to receive is a sample copy of an offer to purchase. You're going to receive a sample copy of questions and answers on home inspections, and you're going to receive a sample copy of professional services disclosure and election form. And this is so that you can be prepared up front with the types of forms that you'll see during this transaction. Some agents charge a fee to set up a home warranty for you if we negotiate that. I myself do not charge a fee, so you don't have to worry about that. Confidentiality of offers. We have to keep confidential the price and the other material items that we're offering to the sellers, and that means our other buyers as well. So what that means for you as a buyer is if we're in multiple offer situation, the listing agent cannot tell us what the other offers are. So then we're going to use my expertise with negotiating to put in the best offer for you to get the house if you decide that's what you want to do. Additional provisions, guys, is just usually where I put things like should cooperating firm offer less than 3%, agent agrees to accept offered compensation and not charge buyer additional. Or should buyer return in future to buy or sell real estate, they will receive a 0.05% rebate on commission at closing. This builds loyalty with your clients. Dual agency. So this is just where when we talked about the working with real estate agents, you have to decide whether you are okay with dual agency or not. And what that means is if you are not okay with any type of dual agency at all, I cannot show you any listings that my firm has. But if you want to see the listings that my firm has, but still have an exclusive buyer representation, you can have that. And what that is called is designated agency. So in that instance, you're going to go down here and you're going to initial that you authorize our firm to act as a dual agent, but then you're going to come down here and you're going to initial by designated agency as well, because that's saying I want one individual person to represent me that does not represent the seller's best interest. Now, if you don't want any EXP listings at all to be on the table, you're going to desire exclusive representation by our firm. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, which one do you feel most comfortable with? It's my recommendation to do designated agency so you can see every single home that's available out there. And then you let them answer that. All of this information that you're seeing right in here, that is all what you went over in your working with real estate agents. Then you come down and it says dual agency compensation. This is usually going to be 6% because most people are charging 3% and 3%. This is, again, is your practice. What are you going to charge for dual agency? Are you going to charge more for dual agency? What do you think? I keep it at 6%. That's just what I do because that is kind of what we see most often. Mediation, what this says, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, is if a dispute arises or related to this agreement, that you agree to mediate it with us before you try to terminate so that we can try to fix whatever issues going on. We understand that sometimes communication fails, that sometimes personalities don't mix. So we just ask that you give us a chance to make it right. And if for some reason you decide you do not want to work with us anymore, this states that we have to mutually agree to terminate this contract in writing before you can proceed with another agent. Down here talks about surveillance, you understand that some homes do have video and they do have voice recording. They're not supposed to, but some of them will, and that's just disclosing that. It talks about photographs and video. We cannot photograph or video a home unless we have the seller's permission. So if you feel like you're going to be doing video tours or taking pictures to show family in a certain house, please let me know so I can request permission from the seller. Wire fraud. I want you to understand that nobody is ever going to send you an email asking you to wire funds except the closing attorney. And that will be really, really close to the closing date. So when that happens, please refer to me first before you sign that. Then you come down, the buyer is going to sign and date. You are going to put your firm license, which is C22682. Go ahead and make that note. And then you've got your individual license number. You're going to sign and you're going to date. And on each page, you and the buyer are going to initial. And that is buyer agency and working with real estate agents in a nutshell.